Hi, I'm Proma,
And I'm Radhika.
and
And
together we're Prom Red. We are here this week, looking stressed, feeling stressed in our Y2K best, which isn't very Y2K, to discuss Hulu's Tell Me Lies, which just had its season three finale after 8 episodes of stress.
chaos.
I'm just gonna keep doing this the whole time.
That feels right. Yeah, this was the best Y2AK I could do. I don't own any skinny jeans anymore, thank God. I'm happy that that era is over for me. They really don't work on my body type, honestly, and I don't know
Have them,
how.
but I don't wear them. Like, I'm not comfortable. I've never liked jeans, is my hottest fashion.
I love a straight jean and a baggy jean. The skinny jean, really not good for my figure.
I mean, it's too late for me now.
But yes, we are gathered to discuss Tell Me Lies season three, which we have both been watching very closely because we are both recapping the show weekly for various outlets, going through it with like a fine-tooth comb every week.
I had never watched the show before. I think I must have heard of it. Like, as a television reporter, I assume I'd heard of it, but I didn't have to touch it. I didn't have to report on it at all. And so in many cases, like, we just skip those shows because there's not enough time. So actually last year when we started planning, mapping out our like prom rad episodes, you did ask me if I watch Tell Me Lies. So you've been watching from the beginning?
Yeah, I think when you said that, I was like, proceed with caution, which is what I tell everyone with this show. But yeah, I've been watching it from the beginning. I'll never forget my family friend, Vidya, shout out. She's the one I think who messaged me and was like, "Are you watching this show?" Because we both have just talked about many of our like interpersonal dating relationships and are seriously triggered by this show. But like, I think that's the magic of the writing of this show is like everyone that I know, like every woman of our age, kind of like relates to it, which is an indictment on dating in our current time. But yeah, I've been watching it since then. I think it's like I look forward to it, but I'm also extremely stressed watching it.
It is not bingeable to me because I ended up having to binge it to catch up before going into season three and like cramming in as many episodes like as I could in a day just because there weren't enough hours and I had a very clear deadline. Just not a healthy mental space to end up in
Would not
because of work.
recommend.
Yeah, so for the people who are binging, and I'm sure there are many of them, Godspeed. I can't recommend it medically.
We talk a lot about the weekly aspect of TV versus the binge, and there are certain shows where the week to week conversation is really interesting. And as much as this is not a mystery box show or like sci fi theories, all that, there are still so many theories to talk about with people. All these characters are so messed up in their own ways and have so much trauma that they're unpacking, and they're backstabbing each other and making bad decisions that we will be getting into. But I think some of the fun of it is talking to people week to week and being like, what do you think is going to happen with them? And why hasn't Stephen died yet? And
Well, yeah, I think there are a lot of shows where the week to week mystery and theorizing and suspense is fun. This is one where I think you need that 7 day period to process emotionally.
I guess the challenge of recapping this show that I have felt compared to other shows I've recapped is I really think that every detail of this show is very important. So even a throwaway scene like Lucy sitting on her straightener, even something as simple as that is like a throwaway scene and it's very short, but I felt the need to mention it in my recap, and I felt the need for so many things like that, which I feel like there are some shows where these things happen but you feel like you can gloss over some of those details, but with this I just know that that's going to rear its head sometime later, and so you have to watch it so closely, and I'm like meticulously taking notes as I'm watching it, which is like good and bad. But as a recapper, it's like you really want to feel like an authority on the subject, and so watching it with an eagle eye was kind of the approach that I took of then like having that and then trying to unpack like what those things mean and where that's going to take the characters.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a little different from my approach, but I think I go like I'm so laser focused on the analysis but the same thing where every detail I'm like, why did they do this with their face when they said that? Like, why did it cut to this person? Like, why did these reactions matter? And like, because there's so much carried in the tension of the dialogue and the performances. But it's interesting that you brought up the curling iron thing because I don't think I mentioned that in my recap, but that to me was such a clear mirror of physical pain to all of the psychological and emotional pain that Lucy's going through. We're supposed to feel maybe not necessarily that she is unraveling like to us as a third party, but to understand that she feels like she's unraveling and she's feeling very unstable. And I think they did a really good job this season of putting you in that mindset with Lucy.
For sure. I think it's that it wasn't just a one-off. There was her sitting on the straightener or the curling iron. There was her then taking off the bandages. Then there was Pippa noticing it. And then I was on social media and I saw someone make a video about how Pippa had, in the first season, in the flash forward at the wedding, when Lucy's curling her hair, there is a moment where Pippa takes the curling iron from her. So there's a lot of things where I was like, this has to add up to something, and we haven't seen it yet, and TBD if it will. But I love that they kind of have those things that are there for the audience to kind of dissect and see if there is meaning beyond just what's shown to us.
I'm procrastinating, but should we dive in?
I guess we should give a quick recap of what the show even is, if this is your first time even hearing about
Oh,
Tell Me
true.
Lies.
If your first introduction to Tell Me Lies is our season 3 recap, then good for you.
Honestly, you're a real one for tuning in.
Yeah, I love the brand loyalty. Okay, so Tell Me Lies is a Hulu series created by Meaghan Oppenheimer, basically centrally about this very toxic relationship that starts out romantic, and then the two of them break up, but then they are just like orbiting each other forever, horribly, and their friends are involved too, and everyone is horrible to each other. Am I doing a good job? Like, it's about toxicity in friendships and relationships, and how I think because the characters are in college when a lot of this happens, how that kind of environment is such a pressure cooker for these already questionable and volatile situations.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. The show bounces between two timelines. So there's one in really our era of going to college, which is like 2008, 2009.
Yep.
Um,
I was like, we're not that old. We did go to college
no,
in 2009.
unfortunately, crucially, that's why I think I was like, this is crazy, because also when we were in college. So I think their freshman year is 2008, so technically they'd be a year older than us. And then it also has
I
a
think in my head they were like 5 years older than us, and that's wrong.
That's incorrect. Their college portion takes place in that 2008, 2009. And then it also has a separate timeline taking place in 2015 where two of the characters, Bree and Evan, are getting married. And so it's all of the different wedding events. We see all of the characters in different like configurations in some ways where there's different people that are dating now and there's people who just haven't seen each other in so long. Um, and but the consistency is that they are all still supposedly friends, which I would argue they should not be.
For sure that overall isn't like super suspenseful in that way, because it starts out with the parallel timelines and establishes that up front. It creates this question of just how did we get from A to B, which is attention sustained throughout the show, I would say. And season 3, interestingly, there were a few episodes in the middle where we didn't visit 2015 at all. I had this like dread building in me that like bad stuff was happening in 2015 that I didn't know about.
I think it was only the premiere and the finale that really spent a lot of time in 2015. I don't know, I kind of like that in terms of when we are spending time there, there's a lot of shit going down and there's a reason to be there. The main two characters are Stephen and Lucy, and they're the ones that are like circling each other. And
Played by Jackson White and Grace Van Patten, who are dating in real life and seem to be having a great time.
honestly, there's three couples in real
Everyone
life.
on this show
Four
is
couples,
dating.
four couples in real life on the show.
I mean, hopefully that speaks to like a good on-set environment for those types of relationships to thrive. Obviously, it's not real what they're playing, but I wonder if there's a sense of like, if we've been through that, if we've said those things and done those things to each other, like we can survive anything, even if it was playing pretend.
I wonder, or it's like, yeah, there's definitely a separation of you're saying these things to me, and I can take the personal out of it because it's you saying it to me as a character. But I don't
Sorry,
know.
and I realized I didn't mean to romanticize that at all because that's probably what Lucy is telling herself on the show. That's not what I mean. Maybe just for the actors to be like, I've seen this person like be angry and yelling and it wasn't real. It was fake and this is who I know them to be. But we've like done that even as an exercise. So now we can be comfortable. I don't know. I don't know how they're all dating is actually the answer.
I cannot. It's impressive, honestly. But
Let there be some joy to come out of this.
if nothing else, like, some happy relationships. Um, but yeah, so Stephen and Lucy are kind of circling each other throughout college, and we see also in 2015 they are still not necessarily constantly in touch, but when they see each other, there is a weird like magnetism that pulls them back together. And it's upsetting. But there's a lot of emotional abuse and trauma that is portrayed throughout this show, which is why it's extremely triggering. Proceed with caution, etc. Like, it is a very tough watch, especially if you have had to date in the current world.
The it's all very subjective. I feel like from my experience watching the show that they are pretty clear about painting Stephen as the villain. You know, we have talked about how we find him just absolutely abhorrent. Jackson White, who is like a normal, like handsome looking guy, we find him hideous when he is portraying this character. He's like hunching his shoulders. He's got this like real beady-eyed character about him. So like it's
My
easy to watch
favorite
the
was,
show.
sorry to interrupt, but my favorite was when Brie called him a turtle. Like, that's perfect.
Yeah, he's like he's an evil little turtle. Easy to watch as a viewer, and this happens with many shows, and be like, yeah, like that's a bad guy, stay away from him. But you get to see firsthand that other people are charmed by it, and that happens a lot in real life, where maybe you can see that in someone or view someone this way, and another person doesn't see it. So on one hand, sometimes I'll watch it and I'll be like, he's being too obviously like awful and whatnot, but that has happened in real life, and where I feel that way, and someone else is like, what do you mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the show does such a good job of showing how easily it is to fall back into some of these relationships, especially when there's like low self-esteem involved, which I think they do a good job of showing Lucy to have lower self-esteem. And we don't get into why exactly she has those feelings, but she clearly, like, through this relationship and the decisions she's made, she thinks she's a terrible person, and she's acting accordingly. I think the show does an amazing job of just portraying the circumstances that lead someone to get into a relationship like this and then stay and keep going back. No matter how many bad things happen, as soon as they say one good thing, you want to give them another chance. It's a very real pattern that happens in toxic and emotionally abusive relationships where, they apologize and they say one nice thing or they compliment you, and then suddenly you're like, okay, I'll give them another chance. And we see Lucy go through that so many times with this person that Brie literally is like, he ruined your life, which we'll get into. But
There's you see the cycle at play very much, where like I would argue her self-esteem gets lower, gets knocked down progressively throughout the show, because she'll be with Steven, be on this high, they'll break up, and then he convinces her that she's a bad person, she's done something bad, but also I'm the only person who sees you and still loves you for that. So you can't be with anyone else, but also how lucky are you to be with me? Gets that in her head, and then it all happens all over.
yeah, the very manipulative language that I think is very prevalent in relationships like this. So I think, again, credit to the writing. I think it is such a well written show, well plotted and executed. Just all the different tangents that are going on in the show constantly. I just feel like they pull everything together in a really nice way.
If to get into the finale, this is a real who's who of like making bad decisions, going through it. There's a communication breakdown in many cases where the friends aren't always able to help each other. But scene to scene, I was like, oh right, and this character went through this, and they went through that, and that happened to you before, and that's what happened to you 2 scenes ago. Like at some point, Bree shows up in the episode, and I was like, oh, Bree's been having a chill time. No, she did not. This was after the confrontation with Oliver and Marianne in the office. And when that happened, I was like, this is the most stress I will feel in this whole hour, surely.
That's another thing is the show does a good job of showing everyone's motivations. You might not agree with them, but everyone kind of has a reason for acting this way. Even Steven, who I hate and I think he's terrible. Even like he has family issues and his mom hates him and treats him terribly. I would argue that's not a reason to then turn around and terrorize every girlfriend you've ever had, but
He has control. He needs
he
control.
needs control, he needs power, and he's, definitely someone who, when he doesn't have those things, he retaliates and he
And
reacts.
and he says to Lucy up front at the top of the season, like in the scene where that ends up being her making the tape, he says, I want to hurt you and I don't know how else how. So he does have that driving force, at least sometimes, to cause pain, and he will find a way to do it.
Yeah, that was very striking because I don't think they've so plainly put his motivations on screen like that. Yeah, I know that's what you were thinking, but you hadn't said it out loud yet.
And a rare moment where he's being completely honest. I do think I don't think he said that to like even be manipulatively vulnerable. I think it just broke through and was real.
The things that I had kind of identified of moments that were building throughout the season that kind of broke in the finale was we can start with Lucy's false rape allegation and the confession tape that she made, which is also, of course, tied to her and Evan sleeping together, which Stephen finds out about, and just the tangled web of that. I couldn't help but, as I was watching, I would have just been like, I'm just gonna tell Brie. Like, it's not worth it to let this psychotic person hold this over my head, and you never know when he's going to use this information. And I would rather just, of course, you're gonna hurt your best friend. I understand that, like, you don't want to hurt Brie after all she's been through, and you don't want to lose this person. But I don't know. I couldn't shake the fact that it would just all be solved if you just came clean and found a different group of friends.
And in the finale, we see what happens with the tape. Side note, I can't keep calling it the tape because it's not a physical tape. The video,
It's a
um,
memory card.
when she literally has the SD card and he's like, "Here's the tape." I'm like, That's not a tape."
It's Y2K
He's
though.
he's always gaslighting. He never stops. But what we see in the finale is that it ends up being a truly worst case scenario with the tape. That video leaks. There's already been damage done to Lucy's reputation. This is the nail in the coffin, and she gets expelled. Her entire life is, if not ruined, redirected. Would it have been as bad to just tell Brie the truth? I think also that's us coming with perspective. Again, you're in this pressure cooker, you're down the hall from these people, she has to spend 2 more years at least with Brie. It does feel like life and death. So much in college feels like life and death that is simply not.
And that's the thing. I know I'm coming at it as someone in her 30s looking at these people being like, oh my God, you could just. But I think if I was in that situation, friends are everything. I think it would be very, very hard to just tell Brie. And you never know. She probably would have disowned you as a friend, and she'd be well within her right to do that. But I don't know, just giving Steven that kind of power over me is like a very scary thought. And we obviously see that it literally drives Lucy into a daze where she does not know what is happening. She is so overwhelmed by the stress of this. And I don't know, it's very hard to watch her do that when, I don't know, it would have just been easy if Evan hadn't told Steven because he's.
And why did he do that? He's never liked this man. Like, why did a man choose this moment to open up?
The male friendships don't make sense. And Wrigley is the only person who, I mean, that I like in general, but he's the only one who is even an actual friend to any of them. And then he's even questioning, like, why am I friends with these people?
Yeah, he's the only one who shows any interest in like breaking the cycle and getting away from it. And that's because he has a very different perspective after losing his brother, mere weeks before the events of this season. I want to go back to the tape again. I think something that disconnected with me in the finale is that on top of feeling like Lucy should just tell Brie and not let Steven hold it over her, what was weird for me in the finale was that every other character who finds out as this goes along does treat Lucy sleeping with Evan as like the worst possible thing you can do. Like the moral outrage that Pippa has, again, justified to a point, but in the context of everything else that is happening, including with Pippa herself, I was like, are we sure this is the one we're gonna pick? Is this the hill? And I personally don't agree with that.
I agree. I struggled with Pippa in the finale as well because I do feel bad she got broken up with twice in the same episode and, clearly is working through so many feelings of she loves Wrigley, but definitely as a friend, and she is developing these strong feelings for Diana and also trying to grapple with like whether that makes her a lesbian or not, or just what label she wants to put on herself. And then, of course, both of them kind of pulling back from her in a romantic capacity.
And at the same time, she does not want to process the fact that she was likely assaulted earlier in
Exactly.
the season.
Exactly. And
So that's kind of just sitting simmering under everything.
it was tough to watch her kind of go at Lucy and just being like, you're terrible and I don't want anything to do with you. It's hard to defend what Lucy did in terms of making the false rape allegation, but it's also hard because her heart was in the right place. She was doing it because she wanted to defend Pippa. Of course, she should not have done that, but the fact that Pippa can't see that or can't kind of, give her any
In the
that.
moment, that's not the thing she's the most mad about. The thing she's the most mad about is that Lucy slept with Bree's boyfriend.
Yeah, but they were both combined where she was like, this is, yeah, it definitely, the Evan thing I think was her like, this is this last straw for me in terms of our friendship. Like you said, the moral outrage where she's literally cheating on Wrigley at the same time.
Yeah. And Wrigley has also been through a lot, need I remind.
Yeah. Yeah, so Pippa, it was hard. It was hard for me. I understand again. I think this is where the writing excels. Like I totally understand why that was her reaction and why she's kind of compartmentalizing these different things that are happening where she can see what she's doing in a completely different light as what Lucy's doing, even though they are two sides of the same coin.
And a couple times in episode 7 and 8, she does have immediate self-awareness about it. Like after Wrigley breaks up with her and she kind of gets mad, she tells him that he's rejecting her. She is very upset and kind of indignant about it. But then moments later, when she's with Diana, she's like, I don't think I handled that well. And I was like, yes, correct. And then same thing after this Lucy conversation, she ends up talking to Wrigley, seeming much more clear-headed about it. Pippa loves to tell people how horrible Steven is and how no one's doing anything about it. She is also not doing anything about it.
You know who does something about it is our boy Wrigley.
Wrigley heard one thing and he was like, absolutely not, I'm ending this now.
MVP of the season. Like I think every single moment of Wrigley this season was just standing ovation. He's a feminist. He's taking Stephen down from the inside. Like I love him. The only thing I hated is his 2015 hair. I just cannot stand it.
I was his hair for the first like 2 seasons.
Yeah, and I hated it.
It's bad.
Season three,
No, he
his
literally
hair.
got a haircut and Nicole was like, there's a new crush in season 3. And I was like, oh God, who is it Wrigley? Is it Wrigley with a haircut?
Wrigley with a haircut and Alex, but Wrigley with a haircut, number one.
Some of the bright spots in this season, I would say Diana and Pippa getting together, even though, again, Pippa was cheating on Wrigley and they were like off on the side in secret. And we did see her kind of trying to guilt Diana about some of the Steven stuff again. But for much of the season, I was like, anytime the two of them were on screen, I was like, oh, thank God, I can just like unclench for a little bit.
Yeah. I was interested in your thought about Diana's approach to Stephen because it's so in contrast of Lucy because Lucy wants to just take him down and wants to see consequences for his actions. And I think Pippa is definitely on that page too, though to your point, has done absolutely nothing to get him there. But Diana is very, and I understand her being like, I just don't want to have any interaction with him. I don't want to give him any reaction to his behavior because that just fuels him to do something else.
Right.
And I thought it was very interesting to show both sides of that. I personally think I would be a Diana in this situation because I'm just not confrontational. So I would be like, just leave me alone. And let me go to the West Coast real quick. Like
Well, I
escape.
would argue though that this is Diana's version of doing the same thing. Like for her, taking him down is gaining the power and the control back from him and watching him not have the satisfaction of getting to her. Like him realizing that she's actually did great on the LSAT and she got into Yale, but she's not going to go because of him. That has a major effect on him. That I would say in many cases, like Lucy yelling or fighting with him or threatening to do other things, like doesn't even scratch the surface.
Yeah.
So she knows how. I think part of the season, particularly towards the end, Lucy's kind of trying to beat him at his own game, and she fails. And Diana succeeds while not stooping to his level.
That's perfect. Good read.
Thanks.
Yeah, the other bright spot is Bree and Wrigley, even though it is hard to root for two people that are cheating on their partners, but we don't really want them to be in those relationships anyways. So, um, I think I noticed it in the premiere where they are at that party where they do Molly and they walk home together, and they just have such an easy chemistry. And I thought that scene where they're at the bus stop just chatting and Brie is just saying random shit and like cracking Wrigley up and really making him feel like a person after this trauma that he's been through. And like in that moment, I was like, okay, they're definitely setting them up to be
Yeah.
romantic. But I was like here for it from the moment they set that up.
Well, and I think even in previous seasons, I think the chemistry between Kat Missile and Spencer House is that potent and in that exact way that you need it to be. Because they've had very few scenes together in the past, but I do remember being like, oh, there could be a good friendship here. This is nice. And then you get to see that blossom in such a natural way. The ease of their banter together, but also the way that they're confiding each other, Brie and him especially, which he eventually calls out, rightfully so. Why is she confiding in him and not in her boyfriend? But then even then she's like she can't not be honest with him and she immediately answers and is like, well, I feel safe with you, like things are better with you, so I do want to talk to you. But then I can't, but then am I supposed to believe that they kissed that one night and then didn't talk about it or do anything for 6 years? Because that makes me mad.
You are supposed to believe that.
Because also there's no way that they weren't around each other because she continued to date Evan that whole time.
I
And it
think
didn't
though,
take much for that conversation to finally happen and for them to hook up when they did.
I think though what they're showing is that Bree was so hurt by Wrigley sleeping with Pippa again and feeling that rejection from him that she just shut it down for however long until literally they are forced to have that conversation at the engagement party, and then obviously it escalates into something crazy. But in the timeline, yeah, the fact that it took 6 years for that conversation to happen is a little crazy. But
He was just like, are we not going to talk about it? I'm like, is this the first time you said this in 6 years? And then they went immediately to having sex.
he's the only good communicator on this show, so like he might have tried, and Brie might have been like, "We're not talking about this."
That's true. And also, I guess like the urgency of the engagement probably is somewhere in her mind where, again, I do think it was too easy how quickly they started to have sex in that scene. But
Yeah,
maybe she was sort of like, oh God, what am I doing? But then she still did it. She continued to get engaged to and marry Evan with this man standing there as witness.
ugh, I know, poor Wrigley. It breaks my heart, but
And that's where we've left them. She's married to Evan, but smiling at Wrigley all like,
get that annulled because it literally happened within the last 24 hours of
yeah.
Steven blowing the whole thing up.
I do want to touch upon that because that scene at the reception with Stephen giving his whole horrible speech. Also, not a lot of people left though at that point except the college
It's
crew.
just
So he kind of
poor.
delivers it like it's for other people. And I'm like, those people are gone or don't care. Like, no one at this wedding is like, let me get a dose of Evan and Bree's college drama. If I'm there, I'm at the reception, I have pieced out, I'm dancing to Kala Chashma somewhere, like, it's not, this isn't happening. But then that whole thing is played kind of for comedy afterward, like the reactions to his speech and like Evan getting mad in particular. That was a little bit weird for me, tonally.
Falling into the cake. Yeah, the tone was a little weird for me too. I just don't understand why Steven was even at this wedding to begin with. Like, literally, Brie being like, I never liked you. Like, get out of here.
All of these people should be far away from each other. In every recap, I say that.
But I think it's also, I guess it's a reflection of like men make excuses for their shitty friends all the time. And like Evan has been doing, well, I'll say Evan's also shitty, but they've both been making excuses and using each other as we've seen. Like Steven using Evan as basically his personal bank. Um,
Nicole's theory was that they've probably kept Steven at a distance this whole time. over the like the 6 years in between. But then it came to like, oh yeah, we're getting married. Like, yeah, let's invite him. Some probably one of those types of obligatory invites.
Yeah, they probably aren't in touch with Steven like regularly, but then you just gotta cut him off the list. He doesn't need to be
Yeah,
there anymore.
they have a group chat where they text about like the Super Bowl or whatever.
They're doing their fantasy football drafts together.
Yeah, I think having the distance from his day-to-day chaos probably made it easy for, if not Wrigley, then certainly for Evan to be like, it's fine, it'll be harmless. And like, no, this man has actually gotten worse with time. He has fermented, he has curdled.
I don't know that Evan feels like Steven still has anything over. Lucy and Evan sleeping together still hadn't technically like come out
Yeah.
into the
The
public.
worst thing anyone has ever done in this world.
Well, I guess for Evan, like it would break, like blow up his idyllic marriage that he is like, fixated on.
And I guess worth noting that the worst case scenario there kind of ended up being true. Bree found out and she did a horrible, horrible thing. Yeah, she, again, derailed, if not ruined, her friend's life. And I think we powered through that a little too quickly in the finale, too.
In the penultimate episode, basically, Lucy goes to Steven's dorm room at the very end of the episode, is like hysterical, extremely distraught. Basically, is like, I just want to watch this confession video that I did and just see how bad it is. And she keeps replaying a part where she's like, I'm doing this just to say sorry. I'm doing this just to say sorry. And Steven is watching her watch it. And at a certain point, he just stops it, pulls out the memory disk, and hands it to her. And he's like, just take it. She's not sure if he has a copy of it, but she just kind of walks away, feels like a weight has lifted, and then goes and tells Pippa and Bree that like this is why I've been acting crazy, is he has had this tape and has been holding it over my head. At the same time, Bree sees a Facebook photo in which Evan and Lucy are like in the corner canoodling, and immediately is like, oh, that's who Evan
'Cause
cheated on me with from the night. Yeah, it's the coconut bra.
a
um,
coconut bra.
and so she's immediately clocked what's happening. And then in the finale, the tape gets released somehow. So we are led to believe that, of course, Stephen would lie about having a copy. Like, why would he not?
This is a kind of deliberate misdirect, too, because when Lucy confronts Stephen about it, he behaves very, very much in his like manipulative gaslighty persona where he's like, what are you talking about, Lucy? I gave you the tape. You did this. It sounds like he's telling her, convincing her, in the same way that a long time ago he was like, I wasn't in the car with Macy. Who's Macy? The
Yeah,
exact same tone,
delivery. Yeah.
delivery. So as an audience member, I didn't even question that he did this.
Oh, and I was like, yeah, like, of course he did. He's a psychopath. And of course he's holding something over her head still. But we come to find out that after Brie has put together what Lucy did to her, she finds the tape and releases it. Once it's out in the open, she smashes it to smithereens, and Lucy is called to the dean's office and is expelled. And Brie helps her pack up her bags and is like, that's the part where I'm like, she's acting like not very guilty about it. Maybe it hasn't sunk in yet as to like the damage that she's done, but she's helping her, take her things off campus and feels bad, but doesn't, I don't know if she's feeling as bad as she should.
And
In
until this point, including earlier in the season, I've had respect for how the show treats the female characters and their friendships in particular. Like even while they're all individually going through it, Brie, Pippa, Lucy, like they do try to like kind of come back together and debrief and support each other. Not as much as I'm sure they would like to or they could, but like there is a core of support and love there. And this is a real turning point, especially with regard to 2015. They continued to be friends. In the pilot episode, Lucy's boyfriend is like, you see your college friends all the time, which means she's continued to hang out with Brie and Pippa. She made up with Pippa at some
bridesmaid.
point.
She's a
Hmm?
bridesmaid at Bree's wedding.
She was bridesmaid at Brie's wedding. So that's terrifying to me that this was left unsaid for 6 years, that Brie had this knowledge, not only that Lucy slept with Evan, but that she retaliated in the way that she did. That is very, very scary to me. And it just reframes their entire friendship from the present angle.
Yeah, and I agree completely. I wonder how they're gonna explain it away. This was like one of those burning questions where I'm like, how do we see the characters moving forward in any type of way.
Once again, they must all stay away from each other forever.
At the same time, like at the end when Lucy finally hears the truth because Stephen airs out everyone's laundry, like Lucy reacts and she's like, Brie, are you, like, did you really do this? But then we don't see much more of how she's reacting because then she goes and meets up with Stephen, just
I think
like,
she's definitely in shock because that's again, that's recontextualizing the past 6 years of her life and everything that led her to the current moments.
and also it's probably because Lucy's been carrying out around the guilt of sleeping with Evan for so long, and now she's like, what I did doesn't even compare to what you did to me. And, so I'd be very curious about that friendship.
In the canon of the show, Lucy sleeping with Evan is the worst thing anyone has ever done.
It's interesting. Like Pippa kind of feels like a tangential character in the 2015 timeline. I'm curious what that friendship has grown to be, because it seems like she's closer to Wrigley than she is to any of the girls.
I think they need to just have their individual friendships, relationships, and not, there's no, again, you're not on campus. You're not going to frat parties every night together. You don't need to be a squad.
And they crucially will not be because Lucy was expelled. There's no campus squad anymore.
Actually, kind of exciting, I think, to break them up because you'll have Wrigley, Evan, Steven, Diana, and Lucy all in different places. Only two characters left at Baird. Steven and Evan are in New York together. Wrigley, maybe Wrigley decides to do an extra semester, stick around to Baird. We have like if everyone's on the same coast, I think there's a little more scope for that.
Lucy should actually go do a study abroad program somewhere else through a different school.
No, she needs to leave and not speak to anyone again, including Lydia. Like, how did she and Steven end up together? There's like a throwaway line in his at the reception where he's like, "Yeah, we just got together to like piss off Lucy." I'm like, "No, no, but you dated for months, if not years, and you were engaged."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's because they're both retaliating, because she's Chris's sister. And yeah, the fact that you're engaged is like you're taking the bit a little too far, because if you're just doing it to piss someone off, like just date. Like you don't
Yeah.
need to get engaged and get married and all of that, which is now not going to happen. But yeah, I would love to see a little bit more of like, I wouldn't be surprised if Lydia is the one that reaches out to Stephen because she wants to hurt Lucy because of what she's done to her brother. Because I don't know, I'm like, Stephen's capable, obviously,
I mean, she's
but
heard horrible things about him, and when Lydia was first going to meet Steven, she was like, "Don't let me near that guy. Like, he sucks so bad." She did have a little bit more grace for him, I think, the last time we saw them speak in the college timeline.
yeah. I also want to talk about just the last scene of the of the season.
Hang on, let's just check my notes really quick. It says, "Girl."
Please do the honors of explaining what happens in this
God.
last scene.
All right, so after the catastrophic reception, okay, well, like it was a little fun. Also, I think the alternative of playing that super serious dramatic is just very, very unpleasant to watch and potentially violent. Like Evan falling in the cake is more manageable.
A much needed laugh in a sea of
Yeah.
very serious topics.
And so then Lydia has now left Steven, Max has already left Lucy. As they're leaving the reception, he says, none of these people are going to respect you after today. And I can't stress enough that, again, the people he's talking about are 5 college friends, who she is not close to. The one she was closest to was Bree, who did something really messed up to her in retaliation. And maybe, like, I don't know, a couple of Evan's uncles. Like, these are not important people in her life. He's acting like this happened in front of everyone they know and love, and it really is just like a handful of very unimportant people.
Yeah, I think he just knows how much Lucy cares about her friends and knows that saying something like that or being responsible for changing the way that they view her like would crush her. So he's just again manipulating and using what he knows about her against her.
Yeah, ultimately, he falls back on a great technique of his, which is isolationist language, making her feel like she has no one else in this world but him. There was quite a big amount of suspense for me where I was like, is she going to get in this car? There's no way. She is, she's not. I went back and forth, and then she gets in the car, which was excruciating. But I don't know, and I would love to hear your opinion on this, how much she believed it or fell for it this time.
Yeah, I think that was what I took away is I don't think it was gonna be the same old of like they're just gonna get in the car and they're gonna date and she's gonna fall into the same thing. And I think that's evidenced by like the very last shot where, so basically in this scene, they get in the car, they're driving off into the sunset. He's in his G-Wagon and gas guzzler needs some gas. So yeah, he pulls over at a gas station. It's like dawn because like the sun is coming up. Don't know where they're driving to. It's like the middle of nowhere. And he pulls off to get gas, and Lucy is like, okay, I'll go get us some coffees. She grabs the coffees. And in this whole thing, I'm like, what is. I was like, this was also suspenseful because I was like, what is about to happen?
Because
Like,
there was like a minute left.
yeah, and I thought that she was gonna run into someone in the store, but that didn't happen. But she grabs the coffees, she goes outside. G-Wagon and Steven are gone. All that's left is her purse just sitting on the ground. And then Lucy just starts laughing because it's the same pattern happening again. And I think it was her just being like, fucking of course, this is what I
Yeah.
get for falling into this again. Is that's how I was reading it.
But that's why I think I go back to like, with what mindset did she enter the car in the first place? Because she doesn't seem particularly like upset or even surprised by Steven running off. I think she's relieved palpably. But I wish that it had been her decision. I wish she'd gone into the gas station and like not gotten back in the car or not gotten in the first place. And maybe that's a more predictable beat, and we need to still feel that this relationship will always hold something over her, but I don't think it necessarily translated in this sequence. He also like he frames it in a way that like it's so exciting. He's basically like, yeah, my life has been kind of boring and it's been
Without you.
fine, but when the two of us are together, it's like, and that I don't think that's ever been mentioned before. It's more about the thing of like we see each other and like that
Yeah.
angle. So I was like, what?
Maybe that's the like it's been however long of separation, like that's how he's
Yeah.
viewing it
I was
now.
like, oh, was that fun? Was that what
The
you were having this whole time?
The thing that didn't track for me is like, why did he leave? He loves messing with her, of
Right.
like messing and like hooking up with her. So it's like she got
Does
in the
he
car. Like,
does
what
he
is?
think he did it? Did he drive away and he's like, got him?
Yeah, like I didn't get that. Where I was like, he's never once not taken the opportunity to ingratiate himself into her life more, which is what would happen if they, went and hooked up somewhere. So
Yeah.
I was a little confused as to.
I guess they have hooked up within the past 24 hours at that point.
True, but this would be like, fresh start or whatever.
Yeah. And again, it doesn't feel stakes wise as high as when they did hook up, when she was literally dating Max a mere 24 hours earlier.
And maybe that's his mindset too, where he's like, this isn't
Mm,
as exciting because you've consented and you've lost everyone
yes.
else.
No one's going to be mad enough
No
about
one's,
this to kind of
yeah,
piss off.
yeah. And he's like, the only
It,
person to piss off is Lucy by leaving her here.
yeah. But it was
Yeah.
one of a few beats and plot lines in the finale that felt kind of rushed for me. Yeah, one story that spilled over into season three from season two is the Oliver and Bree relationship, which has since ended. Like they broke up, I guess. But then she learns that he is in an open marriage with their other professor, Marianne, and that both of them have other relationships with other people. But then she learns that Oliver is seemingly exclusively having these relationships with his students. And in this case, Amanda, who seems to be his newest target, is underage. She's 17. And so she's already furious that he's just like found a new victim for his like what she has felt is very manipulative and dishonest behavior. Then she finds out this person is underage and she's like, I'm not going to let this slide. When we find out about Oliver and Marianne's open marriage, I tried to like have grace for that. People do that. People are polyamorous. Like, if it works for you, sure.
Especially in the penultimate episode where Bree goes to the house after she finds out that Amanda's 17, and she was it with the intention of confronting Oliver, but only Marianne is there, and they have this conversation where Bree is like, she's so young, and Marianne's like, and how old are you? Like
Mm,
and then she's also like, trying to give advice. She's like, just don't marry someone who loves you less than you love them. And so it's like you start to feel kind of sorry for her, and she's kind of trapped in this marriage where the person she loves more than anything is hurting her more than anything.
yeah, which I'm not gonna lie, I found that a little disappointing, and I put this in my recap where in season three at least, like from the top, Oliver is kind of painted much more as a villain, as dishonest, as like, being older and kind of predatory and like, and yeah, like problematic behavior. In the previous season, it did seem that he and Bree had a consensual relationship. The issue is the disclosure, right? That you could have an open marriage and be seeing other people and your partner's fine with it, but you have to disclose that to your other partners as well. And that's where he makes it so that he and Bree are not on equal footing, aside from the fact that he is her professor and she's 19 and all of those other things. But that there's never a conversation about that, there's no ownership, and then it kind of escalated into Marianne saying that basically she doesn't like their arrangement and she never really wanted it. I would have liked to see a portrayal of like a different and positive and communicative adult relationship on the show, but then again, that's not really how the relationships go in this show.
That to say, the purpose of that whole relationship is to kind of show how a lot of times in these heterosexual relationships, the male kind of dictates the way that these things go, and there's so
Mm.
many different avenues that it can go. We see Stephen and Lucy and that manipulation, but then Oliver and Marianne are a different version of that. And so I think the purpose is that, it comes in so many different shapes and sizes.
And in
And
other ways, Oliver seems like a mature, emotionally intelligent man, but this is where in season 3, he's awful to Bree. He is manipulative, gaslightive, and just like straight up rude with her. And then with controlling with Evan, he's like gaslighting both of them. Then Evan goes to him for advice, which I found absolutely disgusting. And then in the finale, Oliver and Marianne team up with Amanda and with another member of the faculty, with like the dean, to
and Bree's mom,
Andre's
crucially.
mom, to once again gaslight her, be like, you made up this fantasy in your head of this relationship. There's no evidence. Like, ugh.
It was bone chilling, that whole exchange. And that's another loose end where I'm like, where does that take, like, because I don't think Bree's gonna take it lying down. She seemingly wants to fight it. I think this is probably why her mom is not at the wedding. This must be like the nail in the coffin after the previous week where she shows up, or not shows up, I mean, Evan sets that up where she's drunk at her photography exhibit. Um,
And I guess
the
worth noting, given all the other like actions that Bree takes later in the episode, like this is what happens immediately before all of that. The Oliver Marianne conversation, what feels like a pretty clear betrayal from her mother. Then she goes into finding out that, or at the same time, she knows that Evan has cheated on her, finds out it's Lucy. Like all of this is going through her head when then she decides to do something with the tape. No one's doing great.
I think that must be Bree's only way of having control over anything in that moment, and that's what drives her to do that, even though
Yeah.
it's a extremely extreme step to take and hurting someone that, like we said, those
And
are
she
not
is
the same.
upset when she's destroying that SD card. She's like sobbing. In case we haven't said it or stayed true to it, everyone is going through so much on this show. You never know what anyone is going through, truly, and it might be many conflicting and different and horrible things at once. And it's, again, credit to the writing on this show and the performances, some really strong performances that draw empathy even when they're causing frustration and force you to sit there and consider like what drives a person to say or do the things they say under extreme duress. I think that's an important message, and I hope that people are getting it from this show, in addition to like crazy 2000s needle drops and yelling at the screen every time Steven shows up.
Like we've been saying this whole time, it is such an important portrayal of emotional abuse and manipulation and how that can really seep into the way that someone sees themselves and then how they treat others around them and the decisions that they make. And like you said, treating it all with empathy is very important because we see what drives these people to do these things, and I think that's the most important part of it is like it's not so black and white. Like we've been saying, Steven is a villain, but there is still a portion where you're like he's a wounded child who has not been loved by the people that are supposed to love him, which is his family. And doesn't excuse anything that he does, but it kind of helps to see the different perspectives of people, and I think that's like a very important thing to take from the show. And
Yeah.
honestly, it is so well written and well acted, like you said. Oliver's the only person I had actually seen before. Everyone else is a discovery, and they are it's an incredible cast, and they are really committed to the different storylines and the different gears that they have to hit in like the different calibrations of the show, and I'm just very impressed by it. All right, well, thanks for listening. You can find us on Instagram at It's Promrad and on Spotify. I think I named it Promrad Podcast. Just type Promrad and you will find us.
Like,
And then we're also on YouTube. And I think you have to put the at sign into the browser. It's at It's Promrad, I believe.
same thing, search Promrad, and then you can look at our. We wear makeup for this podcast, so if you want to make that worth our while, watch on YouTube.
I think it's video podcast on Spotify too. We out here.
Well,
We'll figure out the other platforms at some point.
not for my friend who's listening in the car, but
As they should. It's a podcast. It's an audio setting. Okay. Anyways. All right. Thanks for listening. Bye.
bye.